Hey folks, welcome to the Market Internal Review for October 9th, Monday, 2023. I'm going to jump right into SPY here on the 2-minute chart. Started off the week with a $2 gap down after a tremendous buy ending last week here on Friday. We had roughly from the lows to the highs about a $10 move. It's a fantastic end to that week. Coming into today, that gap down proved to be rather cumbersome with the war news that came out over the weekend. I think I expected a little bit of some bearish sentiment, and mainly watching oil stocks and other energy type companies, Lockheed, Boeing, just trying to see kind of where the money was coming in to the market today and just trying to decide what kind of opportunities may be provided. The calendar was showing some Fed speakers today, and I don't know if it was an issue with TradingView or what, but the October 9th events disappeared. I did see them on FX Street Calendar, but they were they I guess still occurred. But the morning was rife with chop. We had trend imbalance early on with quite the bearish price and volume, but after about 10:30, you see we had a little bit of a trend balance. You started to see price flipping towards the upside, but we really struggled with this gap here at the daily gap down. We had that 428.5 price. So a couple times I tweeted out or X'd out. I don't know what to call a tweet anymore now that it's X.com, but I posted on X a handful of times trying to provide a little bit of guidance on how to read this. And I'll be honest, it was pretty challenging given that there wasn't really much to write home about. But what I did key in on was the Russell itself. I felt was actually moving quite strongly compared to some of the other indices relative to their gap. We have this gap zone, same as the other indices. They all had daily gaps. They shot way into the highs of their gap early in the morning and then struggled with it, but they were maintaining, I felt anyways, more on the upper half of the gap, and that TiWAP was still trending up most of the morning. They also bounced the monthly TiWAP every time versus SPY already was well above. So it was a little bit of a difficult read as to whether or not we were going to consider the market overextended or this was a continuation from Friday's move and we were going to see further rise. I was also watching tech. Tech was also having similar difficulties with its daily gap. You can see we rejected the midpoint and actually broke underneath many times. And that's where I really saw Dow and Russell as kind of being that key signal to see if we were going to have a buy today or not. And it took quite some time. And we've had 2 days now where we've really kind of broken the mold for what a trending day typically is. We see something kick off early in the morning, about that first 30 minutes. And that's just not really what we've seen the past couple of days. I don't know that I would really call this a trending day, but trending days typically, if it's upside, we'll have a strong buy, or if it's a downside, we'll have a strong sell, and it'll be a continual trend throughout the day without much chop. But Friday last week and then today, we've seen some pretty immense movement, but it's really just been unlike a traditional trend day. So today's range from the lows to the high, not quite $6, so not as impactful as Friday, but still a fantastic move for SPY. And we'll look at the SPY daily chart here in a minute to see kind of where we've bounced relative to the daily chart. There's some interesting locations, I think, relative to the monthly trend line I have shared and the daily moving averages. But to finish up here, where things really kick off is once we break this gap, we do retest the midpoint and we start to see a full bull flip on price. We've started to see a little bit of it peak on volume. We've got Mercy showing that, hey, we've hit some upside. Now we need to test and hold and see if we're going to stay upside or not. And when we're chopping around on Mercy like this, one thing I like to do is to see where the average is. Is the average staying to the upside? Are we coming back down and trending down? Well, in this case, by the time we had this perfect retest and breakout of the daily gap high, we held the midpoint, we held TWAP, Mercy's green, tick average closures coming up, trend imbalance. We got a full bull flip here on the price and volume for the New York Stock Exchange, and it's just right off the previous day high. We didn't quite break up to the other TWAP targets, but we had an insane range for TWAP previous session because we had that $10 just blowout on SPY last Friday. So I really was anticipating a little bit of a sell-off towards the end of the day. We didn't really get that. I think from the high, we only came back we came back $1.30. That's not really significant compared to the buys we've seen, but yeah, we just didn't really make it up to any of the other targets. So it was pretty much, if you grabbed any of this, it was definitely trim some at the first standard deviation high from Friday. Maybe sell out a little bit more previous day high. At least that's how I did. And I was kind of watching this second deviation on the session, and as soon as we started really holding below that, it was definitely time for me to get out, or at least manage runners tight. But you can see this immense tick average or tick closures. There's so many extreme tick closures. We hit a positive 1400 here on tick. It's definitely been a bit since we've seen that. We did have it Friday, but I think prior to that, it's quite rare to see that kind of tick. So definitely something is going on. There's some pretty strong, impactful movements happening in the markets the past couple of days. And I'd be honest if I said, I don't think that we're done. I think we're going to see more of this kind of crazy action here. But to end the day, I think a couple of really decently clear setups. If I turn off the bar coloring, flip this back to TWAP coloring, and we just look at the price action here. If you've watched the video that shows you how to enter trending moves based off of TWAP, we got a break and retest here. You could wait here to break out of the daily gap. We got another break over here. We come and retest. We hold TWAP and we come back out. We have a nice strong close. That's another fantastic trade. There's just so many here. I wouldn't really be as interested in shorts because we are holding the gap and we also are starting to mix the trends here. So I wasn't necessarily looking for short side. There maybe was a couple of opportunities in the morning, but mainly focused on that upside just because of how strong the Russ was and how relative to the gap we were kind of holding this structure here. Another thing to note is previous day's TWAP from Friday was that 420, 426, almost 427. We kind of had a cluster of wicks right above it. It's not a clean test by any stretch of the imagination, but really close. And then, that's definitely something that we did hold, and we did not come back near that at all for the rest of the day. Going and taking a look at VIX. VIX yesterday or previous day, Friday, definitely retraced from almost a 20 high all the way back down to 17.5. And then today, kind of similar story. We're a little over 19.5 and then all the way back down. So I don't know if this is going to be the thing here over the week. We do have more news coming out not tomorrow, but the day after. We've got PPI and we've got FOMC minutes. I know this per TV says that this has a high impact. It can, and it also sometimes does not. We also have core inflation on the 12th. A handful of things there. So definitely potential for impact there. So I'm going to keep in mind that with those events coming up, those data releases could have some chop. But I don't know. Some of these moves have been pretty spicy and have provided some good opportunity. But looking at the ad by 11 o'clock is basically where we're testing zero. We had a couple of close tests to neutral point. We had a bounce back off a 200 SMA before we finally broke at that almost 130 time. And that's really where we ripped pretty hard. We didn't hit the strong bull zone. Volume had a similar story today. We definitely oscillated around zero way more than we did on the price on the ad. Once we broke, we really didn't bounce 200 at all. It's kind of odd to see the 200 SMA still downtrending even after this move. If we turn the little bit of free data we get at the extended hours, you can see we did break through strong bull zone and even further above. Trend showing us that buy midday, we get a little bit of that balance, but you can see it's really not balance. It's more of just heading over to the opposite side of trend. So I think I said right around 130. So a little bit before 130 on ad is where we saw that breakout over the 200 SMA, and look at how that aligns with this daily gap break. After we already tested it once, we came back, held the daily gap midpoint, held TiWAP, and then break right back on through and just rip for the rest of the day. Beautiful setup there. Looking at the SPY daily chart, so this one here, a couple interesting points. So we have a cluster of wicks right over 200 SMA. I didn't get to publish the video. I've definitely been busy with some personal matters, but this candle from Friday was something I wanted to monitor and make sure if I was going to have a bullish bias, it better be because SPY is holding above the midpoint of this range candle from Friday. And if I was bearish, it better be because we have broken below that midpoint and we're starting to head back down towards 200. So today, seeing kind of where we gapped and where we were in accordance to this range here, this 425.8, almost 426, that had me confident to look for more buying setups. However, we are still chopping in between all of this range here. We are above, somewhat oddly, the 10 SMA on the daily chart. We are under the 20. And I still don't think that this is going to be a bullish reversal. Yes, we're over the monthly trend line that I've been showing you all here on this channel, but all these SMAs are mixed up. And on a handful of occasions, I've said I think we're going to chop in this area, and all these moving averages are going to converge. But obviously, anything can happen. But these two candles alone have taken out roughly, I think, what is that, about 2 weeks worth of candles, 17 days. So those are two very powerful candles. I would not be surprised at all if we have a couple of drawdown days where we come back down in here and maybe test this 425 midpoint area here. Interesting though to see the S&P 500 stocks above the 50-day average. This bottom was kind of the point of which we are starting to have a little bit of a buy. You can see each day, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week, we are starting to rise. We're almost at that 25% of stocks point right here after today's buy. So I'm going to just keep watching that. I'm going to keep my bias in check. I'm going to look at this chart and just kind of maintain somewhat optimistic outlook for maybe a little bit more buying, but I'm also going to keep in mind this candle range right here from last Friday. I think that's very important, and the fact that we didn't come back and test this area, I definitely think we will. So it's just a matter of when we will do that. All right, that pretty much wraps it up for this review. So I hope you've enjoyed the content, and please feel free to reach out on X. Feel free to ask any kinds of questions. I know there's a couple of you that have been asking about different indicators that you see me testing and posting pictures of. I do have some more releases coming out hopefully in the next coming weeks. And I have a backlog of videos that I'm planning on releasing as well. One for the new TiWAP ranges indicator that I put out that plots the same levels as these, but provides a lot more customization and multi-time frame type analysis, which you see me talk about almost every market internal review video. And I guess here, just real quick, I will point out that I think, yeah, SPY is over the monthly TWAP, and we are in between second and third deviation high. Same thing on Qs. The Dow is still below the second. We did have a couple pops over, but it is over the monthly TWAP. And the Russell, same thing. We are within the second and third here. Or I'm sorry, first and second. And then we are over the monthly TWAP. So I think, kind of like in the past months, if the Russ can maintain strong buys, I think that's going to provide room for the rest of the indices to come up that much more. But the tech industry and SPY are definitely leading the charge. And I guess I didn't point that out. Looking at the RSIs real quick across the spiders, SPY definitely earlier on in the day had very little volume compared to previous days. It did pick up. We had 80 mil volume traded on SPY. The leaders of the spiders definitely finance at 61 million, energy at 30 million, and you can see all of these RSIs are definitely trending up. So definitely take a look at individual names. I think there's some bank earnings coming up. I think we got JPM, Wells Fargo, and Citi. Yeah, we got all three of those. PNC. I don't know that any of these are really going to like move the market, so to speak, but there's definitely ones to check out, and they can potentially have impacts if there's really bad economic news associated with their earnings. Delta Airlines, I think some of the airlines are actually facing bankruptcy, so that could be another one. I doubt it would move the markets, but depending on what's said, maybe it could shake some stuff up. Yeah, nothing really major as far as tech earnings goes. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up, folks. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you engaging on X. Again, thanks for watching. Happy trading.